Hi everyone, welcome to the Landscapes of the Soul. I'm Ken Macklin, I'll be your presenter tonight. Last time we were together, we were talking about personality types in the Enneagram. So the self-awareness of the Enneagram enables us to see the world in a new light. So if you're like me and you're trying to make sense of our world, especially during this pandemic, during the political meandering, all the stuff that's going on with justice, it can be a little chaotic, it can be a little bit confusing. And part of that is because of our mindset, and that's what I want to talk about with you this afternoon, talking about mindsets that are stuck or fixed as opposed to mindsets that are anchored. And that has everything to do with how we understand a worldview. It just simply means how we view the world, the lenses through which we understand knowledge, how we understand what reality is, and how we form and shape our values. Once we get a hold of that, then that's the lens through which we see the world, and that the assumptions about what we know and about what is real and about our values, those assumptions then become a mindset. That's why it's different than a worldview. Worldview is just simply looking at the world and trying to make sense out of it, and how we gauge that vision and how we understand our knowledge, our values, and our reality are our assumptions. Now, part of the problem is mindsets can become stuck or fixed, or mindsets can become open and lucid. So I want to describe the difference between the two by telling you a story. Years ago, my son and I, we were hiking out in the woods, and we set up a camp. And we went over to the nearby creek, which I loved camping nearby, and I just simply asked him what he noticed. And the first thing he noticed was that the stream, the movement of the water was coming from somewhere and going somewhere. We're all coming from somewhere. You know, you hear that language where people, where are you coming from? We're coming from, well, where we're coming from is a mindset. So he looked at that water in the center of the stream, and he said, that's clean water. I would drink from that. And then I said, what else do you notice? And then he looked around a little bit, and he noticed that there was a fallen tree and some limbs in the water, and it was trapping the water from the flow. It was out of the flow, and it was trapping and making a whirlwind. And it was also stirring up the mud on the bottom, and it became murky. And I remember him saying, oh, that water over there is stuck, and it's ucky. I wouldn't drink that water. And so that's a stuck, fixed mindset. It's stuck and it's trapped in its own assumptions about what we know, about what we deem as reality, and about what we value. So now a mindset that's open is like an anchor. It anchors itself into this flow, the flow of the water, the flow of the stream. So I say, let's get in the flow. Let's get in the flow. And when we talk about getting in the flow, we're actually talking about getting in the flow of the Spirit that's dynamic, it's lucid, it's open, and it's always moving. However, it realizes that we're coming from some place. We're coming from a particular lens that shape our mind. The difference between a stuck mindset and an open mindset is simply that you're investigating knowledge. You're asking questions about your knowledge. You're wondering what is the meaning and how do you know the things that you know. You're questioning those things. Whereas a stuck mindset doesn't question anything. They just assume that that's the only knowledge there is. And furthermore, when we impose a stuck or fixed mindset upon someone else, that's when the problems begin to occur. That's when there's a breakdown in relationships, a breakdown in political landscapes, a breakdown in just about every facet of life, because there's no communication at that point, because a person is stuck in their mindset, in their assumptions of what they know, and they project that out. They want They want others to know what they know and believe that what they know is the truth. And so they try to convince other people that their way of seeing things is the only way of seeing things. And then you can see the breakdown. Remember what we said last week? Our personalities are different. They're unique to us. And each one of us have a different way of processing our knowledge, processing what we deem to be real, processing the values that we are shaped and formed by. So that's essentially the difference between a stuck mindset and a lucid or open mindset. Now, what's a worldview? Well, as I said, a worldview is comprised of three components: knowledge, reality, and our values. But the difference between a stuck mindset and a worldview is that the mindset takes over the worldview. It takes over. So there's no distinction between the mindset and the worldview. But when the mindset is anchored in an openness and movement and lucid, it realizes that the worldview is simply a mechanism by which we can envision the world. And so what we're looking for in our knowledge is simply this. I call it a spiritual worldview. What is a spiritual worldview? A spiritual worldview is knowledge in a relational sense. It is having a relationship with God. To know God isn't to know about information or cognitively. It's a relational relationship. It calls for intimacy. It calls for vulnerability. It calls for openness. Now, the reality part is what I call transcendent reality. It is forming and shaping what I call a God-eye view of the world. That is to say, we are looking at the world from a transcendent perspective with our mindset that has certain assumptions, but we're open to learning. We're open to discovering. We're open to change. We're open to transformation. We're open to conversion. And the process of becoming then takes place. So as we're flowing in the Spirit, we're becoming, our mind is open, our mind is lucid, it's dynamic, it's not threatened. See, that's the other thing about a stuck mindset. A stuck mindset is threatened by anything that's different than what it is. I think that's probably what's going on in our political landscapes. People are threatened by something else that's other than what they believe to be true. So I am a big fan of football. I particularly am fond of one team. I won't mention which team. And because I don't have time to watch it in real time, I sometimes watch the replays, or I watch the rerun of the game. However, with one caveat, I want to know what the score is. I want to know what the outcome, because if the outcome is in my favor, I'll watch it and I won't get anxious, I won't get nervous, I won't get upset. I'll just enjoy the game because I know the outcome. If the outcome is not favorable to me, then why should I watch it? I don't bother to watch it. So that might be, a little askew, but my point is this, that in Christian spirituality, we know the outcome. We know the outcome by the Word of God and by the Spirit. And therefore, we are invited to relax, to rest in His presence, and enter into the flow of the Spirit, knowing the outcome, so that we're going to go through rapids. We're going to go through trying times. We're going to go through COVID. We're going to go through these political meanderings. We're going to go through all the things that we're experiencing. But that's part of the process that we're engaged in, because we know the outcome. We know where we're coming from. We're in the midst of whatever's going on in our lives, but we know the outcome. The destiny is the kingdom or the reign or the will of God. So from a Christian perspective, spiritual and ethical perspective, we know the end game, so we can simply embrace the process. For example, in John's Gospel. Let me read John's Gospel. So John is an interesting gospel. We're going to look at John throughout the next 7 weeks. But in John's gospel, when you begin at the beginning, like most people do, you might not know where the process is taking you. You don't know until you come to the last chapter. And let me just read to you the verse that I think defines the Gospel of John. This is in chapter 20, verse 30 and 31. Now Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book, but these, that is what you're reading in the book, these are written so that you might come to believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and through believing you may have life in his name. Let me read that to you again. Now Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book, but these are written so that you may come to believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and through believing you may have life in his name. So, the question I want to raise and to consider in the weeks to come is, what's going on in our world? Why are we in this mess? How do we put it together? How do we understand it? How do we set it right? Well, there are 7 signposts, according to the Gospel of John. We're going to look at those signs, and those signs are written that you may believe and have life in his name, because when God is in our lives, we are fully human and fully alive, even in the midst of a pandemic, even in the midst of political meandering. Here are the signs that we're going to be looking at. Now, these signs are broken in our world right now. We live in a broken world. So why is it broken? Why can't these 7 signs speak the same way to everyone? Because it depends on our mindset, whether it's open or whether it's fixed and stuck. Depending on how we view the world, we will interpret these signs either in a broken manner, and we will live out that brokenness, or we will begin to see it as a process, a sign that leads us to the traces of God, to the presence of God and life, so that we're fully human and fully alive. So I'm going to name those 7 that we're going to be looking at in the next several weeks. The first one is love. We talk about love a lot, but how people understand that word is different. And why is it that we are in this divide, this alienation, this polarization, and everyone is saying, love, 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 but no one's doing it. So we need to understand what that means in terms of our mindset. The second is justice. There's a sense we all have this sense, something's not right. Something needs to be done to make it right. But we just don't know how to go about making it right. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Remember, again, a broken mindset, a stuck, fixed mindset is going to see these things in a different way than someone who is more open and lucid. Now, I want to say this right at the beginning. The mindset that is open and lucid doesn't mean that everyone is going to agree. What it does mean is that we will learn how to be civil in our disagreements, and we will learn that through the diversity of our vision, there will be unity. It's like a tapestry. Each piece is part of the tapestry. But if your mind is fixed or stuck, then that piece of the tapestry becomes the whole picture. You can't see anything else but that piece. And that's precisely the problem. Then there's spirituality. How do we understand spirituality? Beauty, freedom, truth, and power. These are the universal signs that reveal the traces of God in our world. But the world is broken, and so too are these signs. These signs are broken. These signs need to be mended. And to do that, we have to unpack their meaning. Why and how did we get in this mess during this season? So that's my thoughts for today. I hope you take the Enneagram test, you take the Myers-Briggs test to try to understand your personality. Those are tools that will help you to discover whether or not your mindset is stuck or fixed, or whether it's open and lucid to other possibilities. So from my heart to your heart, until we meet again, God bless you and may God keep you. May there be peace. Amen.